evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 meeting of the Rockland Board of Selectmen. Please stand and join us in a salute to the flag. Chief Duffy, can you start us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPSRockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements, Cub Scouts. Doug?
Sure, I'd like to read that, Mike, and I have two other ones as
Okay.
well. So the first, as printed on the agenda, the Cub Scouts are having a joint scouting day in front of Town Hall here on Union Street on Saturday the 9th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So any families that are interested in signing their kids up for Cub Scouts, feel free to come to Town Hall outside 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Competing at the same time that day on Saturday the 9th, we have our annual Police Appreciation Day. So just as a reminder for the community, we did put a social media post out earlier. It's something we've done annually now for the past several years. We'll do it at the police station. Hopefully most, if not all, the board members can attend if you're in town. It's just our way to show support. There's usually just a few informal remarks and a group photo, and it's just our way to say thank you. We do it for both police and fire on different days. And the community is certainly welcome to attend. It's at the police station Saturday at 11:30 a.m. And again, we want to, just formally, publicly thank all of our public safety officials. And then lastly, on Wednesday, September 20th at 6:30 p.m. at the high school lecture hall, we'll be having a public outreach meeting for the feasibility study we're doing on the community center, recreation center project. As you all know, we've been working on that for quite a while now, looking at next steps after McKinley. We're looking at the location at Hartsuff Park, constructing a new building, see what that could look like. This is a perfect time for anybody interested in community center, recreation center type activities and projects to come to that public meeting. Wednesday, September 20th, 6:30 p.m. Architects will be there. You can ask questions. We'll try to answer questions and just give input and feedback. That's all I have, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda, minutes from August 8th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda, appointments. First up, we have Karen Ripley for the Rent Control Board. Is Karen here tonight? Karen, you want to come on up? Karen, welcome. I guess we'll start it off with what do you know about the Rent Control Board and what is your interest in joining?
I actually didn't know Rockland had one until it was, I was informed that we were short on one. I spoke to John Clifford, and he kind of filled me in about it. I went on to the state's website and read a little bit more about it, and just want to be as helpful as I can be. I'm already on the charter committee, just looking to do more for the town and help out with the town.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I do have some more, but if you have questions, yep.
You're being a hero, you know.
Thank you.
Or a shero, I should say.
Thanks.
And because it's really vital that we have somebody on rent control now. So thank you very much for stepping up.
Yeah, John Clifford was very passionate about why
Yeah.
this was needed and what's going on right now.
Yep.
Yep.
So
It's
Karen,
awesome.
with that being said, with what is going on right now, a couple questions. Do you now or have you ever worked for Hometown America?
Nope.
Okay. Do you now or have you ever lived at Leisure Woods or at, Hillcrest or what's the other one? Live Oaks, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to blank on that one.
Nope.
Okay. So your interest is purely as a member at large to be a voting member of the Rent Control Board?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, John has made it.
I don't have to beg anymore.
Yeah,
Oh,
but you can
okay.
still do it. You can still bring it up
I
because we
was
still
told it
need
was-
more.
I
But
need 3 members, okay, that's something to say later.
I was going to say, yeah, John has made it a point to ask for people to join at every single
Oh,
meeting.
okay,
So,
thank you.
So that's good. Hopefully, that's where you heard it from. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve Ms. Ripley for the Rent Control Board.
Motion to,
Okay, motion, do I have a second?
second.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for
Appreciate
letting me
it.
help. Thank you.
Good luck. Next on the agenda, Cultural Council appointment, Erica Harrington. Erica, come on up. Welcome. Okay, Erica, same kind of question to you. What do you know about the Cultural Council, and what do you hope to achieve by joining it?
Well, I am almost lifelong resident of Rockland. Definitely interested in the arts, a big advocate for the arts, and I just took part in the public utility box project. I painted the slice of cake on the corner of Hingham and Webster. But I really would love to be able to, I'm hoping to have the opportunity to contribute creative ideas to bring even more art and culture to the community. Both of my girls are in the art program, in the music program at the high school, and it's just, I graduated from there, took art with Miss Rossetti Bailey and Miss Isaac, and I have a passion for it, and I would love to be able to just kind of sit with like-minded people and brainstorm and come up with ideas, and I guess that's it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Anything?
I want
Okay.
to say thank you for your willingness to be involved and share your talent and your ideas.
And the slice of cake is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, having no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, constable appointment, Thomas O'Neill. Thomas? Yep. Welcome. Same question, what's your interest in being a constable for the town of Rockland?
Well, right now I'm currently working part-time for a constable office out of Cambridge. I'm just doing part-time work on one of my off days. I actually work full-time for TSA at Logan Airport. The constable I work for is mainly involved in just the average legal papers, subpoenas. He has a lot of landlord-tenant disputes he's working with. So right now I'm serving those as a regular process server. If I was able to get an appointment, I would be able to kind of move up, have more of a full-time position in the company, and basically advance through that career.
Okay, any other questions? Are you currently a constable in any other communities, or?
No,
appointed
currently not,
constable?
no. I just work full-time at TSA as a transportation security officer at Logan.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion in 2 seconds, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, one more appointment. Derek Yule, reappointment, Community Preservation Committee.
We didn't ask him to come
Yeah,
since it's a
Derek's been around
reappointment.
for-
You already know.
So there's a reappointment. I believe Derek is the former chair of the CPA. I think most of us know Derek in some manner or another. I'll entertain a motion to approve the reappointment of Derek Yule to the CPA.
Motion to approve.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? That's unanimous as well, okay. Next on the agenda, one-day liquor license request, Rockland Fall Fest, Barrel House Z, 9/30/23, 1 to 5 p.m. Allison must be here, there she is.
I'm back. Maybe the
Allison,
final
you might as
time.
well just be a permanent, like, subcategory on the agenda.
Well, you say that, but I think this might be our last meeting together
I don't buy
until
it.
next season,
I don't
at
buy
least. Maybe. We'll see who comes in last minute.
So. All right, so what do you got for us tonight? Just the one-day liquor license?
So I do have the one-day liquor license for Fall Fest, but I was hoping to take just a few minutes to kind of describe and explain.
I knew you were going to. Yep.
So yes, the liquor license tonight is for the Board of, for Barrel House Z. But I wanted to first, because obviously Fall Fest is in 25 days. and we're going to have wonderful weather this year. So first, I want to thank the town employees, everybody that helped kind of get this, with you guys sitting up there and approving, everybody that helps facilitate the Board of Health with the food permits and the whole nine. I could probably go through the whole list of the building, as well as the town departments that participate and help make it safe for us. Obviously, the police department is there, present with their cars and, with their presence to keep us safe. The fire department does a bunch of stuff at the station. Parks and highway, of course, shutting down the street, again, keeping us all safe. The library, and as well as us at the Rockland Recreation, putting it all together. Some of our larger sponsors, so Mountain One Bank, who's really community-driven, hometown manager there, Megan. We landed a pretty good sponsorship with them, and also the Rug Merchant on Hingham Street, which is a new one that's sponsoring these events, which is great. Also, we were awarded a grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council. We just got word of that, so I want to take a minute and kind of thank them officially, and to thank our elected officials that are responsible for, appropriating the funds that go to these festivals. So this one was a specialty one. It was an event and festival grant that everybody got the same amount if they applied and got approved. So first, again, want to just thank our officials, Governor Maura Healey, Governor Kim Driscoll, Senator Mark Paul, who's the Senate Chair for the Joint Committee of Tourism, Arts, and Culture Development, House Speaker Ronald Mariano, Representative Mindy Baum, as well as our state representatives that are here. We have Representative Dave DeCoste, he's hiding in the corner over there, as well as Senator John Keenan. So thanks to them, because I shouldn't say little, those big grants really help us secure, half a mile of events that go on in town. So as everybody knows, Rockland Markets was kind of created as a way to give a cooperative, organized marketing alternative to small-scale farmers, creators, makers, musicians, business owners, the whole nine, a place where we can come as a community together and support one another by shopping locally. And I think we've been really good. This is our third year. We've had really good success in the last few markets. I think we've tuned into where our specialties are. And it's just nice to see everybody come out and mingle. Little plug, next market is September 16th. We have Doggy Adoption Day, as well as a trike called Funk from the Rockland, Massachusetts Culture Council gave us a grant in the beginning of the year for that. So everybody come down and break dance like we did in the 90s. So just a little bit about the event. We have, for food trucks, we have Casey's Curbside Bistro, Time Traveler, Wicked Flavor, Ellie's Sweet Treats, Sweetie Shaved Ice, but we're also bringing in the Union Street restaurants as well as Mima's. Cuban Cafe is going to come out. They're a new one to town if anybody hasn't seen them. They're on VFW where the old Vivi's was. Awesome empanadas. The Beer Garden, Barrel House C that we're approving tonight, Break Rock Players, 90 Plus Wine Cellars Wine Truck will be there, and possibly two others that we can't announce until they put their paperwork in. For activities, obviously local vendors, businesses, we have maybe a nostalgic surprise that we won't announce yet. Live music in 3 different places, obviously right here in the town hall, as well as the library and at the community center. We also have music at South Shore Taekwondo, but that will be just, he'll be DJing over there. We have 360 photos, selfie stands. A lot of the free activities are the candy drop that we do. That's a big hit. That's joined with the highway, with the bucket truck that we rain candy over all the kids. We may have some dinosaur appearances. There's a free petting zoo, free face painting, and karate demos. So all of the above and much more, I'm sure, that I forgot.
Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? No? No. Okay. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the one-day liquor license request for Barrel House C.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Allison, thanks for all the information and hard
Thank
work.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda, legislative update and discussion. Senator John Keenan and Representative Dave DeCoste. Oh, there he is. Gentlemen, welcome. I appreciate you guys, your quick response to our invitation to join us tonight, as I know you guys have a legislative update for us, but we also have some questions. So with that said, I'll let you guys kick it off, and you guys can tell us what you guys have been working on.
Start. Now, I emailed you an email. I can read that as I typically do at one town hall and tell you where we are after the budget. Would you like me to read it aloud, or just simply post it?
You can post it, and you can just talk to us.
Okay.
We've
all right.
known you a long time, Dave. You can.
I'll let the report we sent along speak for itself. And if anyone has any questions, my office is always available. The Senator's office is available. So we spoke on a few weeks ago regarding. So I cannot say that you did not give me with great specificity a number of questions, and I've also talked to Lori regarding some of the questions. So would you like to take them in order of cannabis, civil service, or billboards, or which would you like to hear first?
Well, I feel like there's probably a few more in the last couple of weeks since we've spoken anyway that I kind of thought of. But since we're on it, why don't we start off with the cannabis question? And Doug, you can tee that up a little bit for us, as you've been very tuned into this whole process. And and honestly, I just want you guys to both know. Obviously, I've always appreciated the collaboration and the respect that you guys have for us, as well as the respect that we have for you guys. And I don't want you guys to think anything tonight is anything personal in any manner, because I've always felt as though you guys have both done an excellent job for the town of Rockland. With that said, I know you guys are fighting for us, but I don't feel as though there's a lot in the state that, and maybe it's a culture change that needs to happen, but it feels as though as much as we're fighting and you guys are fighting for what we're asking for, everything's going against us. And we keep pushing to find new revenue streams, and then when we find the new revenue stream, it's swallowed up by the state, so that they can, what appears to happen is so that they can get their cut of it, and they come out with a plan that benefits them more than it benefits the town. So with that said, I'll turn it to Doug for the queue up on the Cannabis Commission.
Thanks, Mike, and I want to thank the senator and the representative. They've been very responsive. I've been talking to them quite a bit for a while now, so I know they're aware of our concerns. The biggest one, of course, is the financial impact of these draft regulations that the Cannabis Control Commission has out there. They have a public hearing this Friday. I'm tentatively scheduled to give some testimony on that. I'm probably going to do it remotely. But as I've talked to both of their offices, this has the potential, if these draft regulations go through and get implemented the way they're talking about it, to be really financially disastrous for the town. We will literally lose millions of dollars of revenue that we were planning on getting. And part of the argument that I want to make to the Cannabis Control Commission, and it's helpful to have our legislators here, is I don't think this was the legislative intent. My understanding is that there wasn't a full discussion on retroactively nullifying existing agreements for communities that already had signed contracts. So, there's an interpretation by this regulatory board, but I think the actual legislators, who they know what was in their head and their intent better than me, but as I talk to them, that's my understanding. And so we're aggressively pushing to have this two-track implementation system where communities like ours that already have host community agreements that were fully executed in effect prior to this law, that those be left alone and be allowed to continue through their expiration, and only new ones would be subject to these new rules. I'm not very optimistic based on these draft regulations, but that's probably the single most important thing in that law and in these pending regulations that's going to directly affect revenue to the town, and the result will be Rockland taxpayers will now have to pay millions of dollars and more for all the related things that up until now the dispensaries were paying. Another side note, we just had a nice photo op last week with one of our dispensaries who gave a $25,000 donation to our Little League to construct a new snack shack and restroom facility. A wonderful thing. They're happy to do it. It's a win-win, and it's cliche. This new law prohibits that. That's banned. That can't happen anymore. It's nutty. I don't understand it. There's other details which I don't think I should spend as much time focusing on that relate to the equity parts of the law, which I think are wonderful intent to bring in those that were previously negatively affected due to laws and all those other things. But the burden, the day-to-day actual burden on town halls is going to be incredible. And it's unfunded, and we're not required to do that for any other type of sector in the economy. So they're taking money away and they're imposing new burdens on us. And with that, I'll stop.
So I guess with that said, is if you guys could provide some insight into what the thought process was of the legislature and the Senate to approve this, pass this law in the first place.
All I could tell you is that probably within my caucus on the GOP side and with probably every single suburban Democrat I've talked to, I would say safely everyone within the 428 belt shares the same concerns you do, the exact same concerns. So my hope is that the committee will hear us. Either that, I know there will be some legislative relief filed, at least out of our caucus, to try at least to reverse the regulations that they are at least considering that would do so much harm. So you mentioned that things are working against Rockland in this respect, as in really the other two, whether it be billboards or civil service. I think it's a statewide phenomenon, and in this case, it is bureaucracies. And I agree with you. I mean, it's almost, but well, no, it is. It's a betrayal of trust. It was sold to us, and full disclosure, I did not vote for this. I do not think. I still believe every single police officer that I have talked to that marijuana is a gateway drug, and there's no question in my mind that there are people on their way to using heroin or using heroin now because of these dispensaries. That said, it's the law. And the law we passed, however, has nothing to do with the distribution and the laws that the laws that we voted for. And I think if we were aware on the House floor that this was going to happen, this would not have passed.
See,
The idea that they're able to reverse decades forward agreements that towns have gotten into and that towns have taken into account in terms of spending, I think is just, it's unconscionable. So I don't think it is good that you're going to testify, and I hope that, all of your peers do so. I think there's a great deal of concern. I know there's a great deal of concern in the House over this as well, because you're not, and in some of the poorer communities who are relying even heavier on this, on those projected revenues, it's a real concern.
See, I think you said it right. I feel in some ways we were sold somewhat of a bill of goods, and our job is to follow the will of the vote, and the vote, whether we're for it or not, is to be determined. But our job is to follow the will of the people, and it was voted at the ballot at town meeting. A zoning section in town was approved to house it, and we saw that other communities weren't allowing it. We saw an opportunity to create a revenue stream to benefit the town of Rockland. We entered into legally binding agreements, host community agreements that were executed by Attorney Galvin's office, that all parties entered into willingly, and I think for the most part, have all benefited from as far as the community. There's been no issues. At one point, the FBI came in to review the files, and we never heard back from them again, which means that everything was on the up and up. So why is a town like Rockland punished for doing everything right?
The senator may have a different view.
No, I'm not so sure that my view is different. I come at this, I think when we look back 10, 15, or 20 years from now, we're going to regret as a society the legalization of recreational marijuana. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been decriminalized, and there's a distinction between decriminalizing and legalizing. I think we rushed too quickly into it. And I don't believe that there was enough thought given to the long-term consequences of marijuana use, particularly by young people. And that's always been my focus, is what is or should be in place to protect young people from this new industry. So, but we're here dealing with what we have. And communities in good faith did enter into agreements with dispensaries or grow facilities, and those agreements now, as a result of the legislation that was passed, are being called into question. I agree with the representative. When this legislation was advancing through the legislative process, this wasn't a topic of discussion as to whether these would be retroactive, but there was an assumption, I believe, that this would affect agreements going forward. And that in the worst case, as it kind of became an issue at the very end, or even after passage, and it was raised, that those that have agreements should be grandfathered in, and those going forward would have to comply with the new terms. I think, and this is my own opinion, I think what we have here is a regulatory scheme that has been worked by the cannabis industry to their advantage. While local shops may be willing to do things locally, we're willing to enter into some of these, enter into these host community agreements. We're willing to make sure that there were mitigation measures in place, and then even beyond that, willing to give a percentage of their revenues, and then also to contribute in broader ways with things like Little League teams, or helping out in other things. And I shouldn't say Little League teams, because I would not in any way, and filed amendments actually to prevent the industry from being involved in the sponsorship of youth sports. But, you know, to help in the community in other ways. My perception is that the industry has captured the regulatory process to some degree, and I believe that's what's driving this. The industry would like to see these host community agreements disappear because it costs them money. And right now, there are many communities where these shops opened, they had host community agreements, the shops are now struggling, in some communities they have closed, and so I think as an industry, they're putting a lot of pressure on the Cannabis Control Commission to get what they can out of these new regulations so that they can ensure that they survive while the sales and everything sorts itself out. So I think that's the issue. I really believe that the industry has a big say in this and would like to see these agreements disappear. So what can be done? At this stage, the hearing is Friday. I think as many communities being vocal as possible will be helpful. I'm not all that convinced, though, that it will change the mind or change what seems to be the predetermined outcome by way of draft regulations. So that may then come back to the legislature if communities, as you have, voice your concerns clearly, loudly to us. I think you'll see a growing number of legislators responding to that, and you may see some legislation. There are a couple bills now that address this, in terms of caps and 3% and things like that. You may see a growing number of legislators say, hey, that's really not, and it goes back to your question, it wasn't a lot of discussion, but it clearly wasn't the intent. And now we have a regulatory authority going out there and putting these regulations in place. We should go back and clarify it. And so you may see that. The other thing that you may see occur is you may see litigation that ultimately addresses this. I know that there had been a presentation, and Doug had shared it with us, and I watched it, to the Mass Municipal Association. And the attorney who presented that, making very clear that she was not giving individual legal advice to anybody, but I thought she conveyed quite clearly that she believes, and others do in the legal community, that this is a gray area, that the statute is not so clear, and that there may be a little bit of regulatory overreach here. So you may see some litigation that prompts a change as well. So I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Make voices heard loudly, clearly, see if the Cannabis Control Commission will change their regulations from what's now draft, clarify their regulations, grandfather in, whatever the case may be, and if that doesn't work, then still speak out loudly and clearly to legislators and encourage legislators to take some legislative action on this.
So outside of Doug's testimony on Friday, what more can we do as a board, along with you guys, to support you guys in fighting for this for us?
I would say, and I know you've been very vocal on it, keep doing that, send us things in writing. It gives us the ability, as we're talking with leadership in both the House, and I won't speak for the House, but in the Senate, to say, this is, now I've got 6 communities, this is 5 out of 6 communities that have sent me correspondence that they're really going to have some financial impacts as a result of what the Cannabis Control Commission's doing. So we're going to have to act. And I think if that is loud enough, there's a chance that some momentum could build behind these bills. One other thing on that, though, there is some hesitancy because the industry is become such a big player, that there may be some hesitancy among some in the legislature to open this up again. And the industry will be afraid to open it up again, fearful that there may be changes that address other issues such as home grow operations and things like that. So the industry wants to try to keep as little as possible from going through the legislative process. But just be loud, let us know, put in writing a vote of the board, for instance, to urge us to explore legislation, I think would be helpful to us as we deal with our colleagues. I think those things will hopefully get some people to listen.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, concerns?
Yeah,
comments?
I was going to just say, I watched that webinar live, and my ears were just steaming. I couldn't believe it. They were also talking about a retroactive take-back of what we've already spent,
Yes.
right, for the past 2 years. So taxpayers will be on our backs to pay back what was it, about $1.5 million?
They're going to have to repossess our ambulance and a couple of police cruisers.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and it's we're really getting screwed, and they totally pulled the rug out from under us. And do we have HCA's for all 4 dispensaries?
yeah.
Okay, all right, and they're for 5 years
Yep.
apiece. So I mean, that's a lot of money that that could go towards some really good stuff. And a part of that is education as well, to educate people on on how not to get deeper into the drug habit. So I don't know, it's just frustrating.
And I think your comments highlight that
Yeah.
both parties, those that, the municipality and then the various dispensaries and organizations, they entered into these agreements in good faith.
Yeah.
Both sides did.
Right.
I question how much good faith the industry is now showing, but I think at the local level, it was considered a level playing field.
Yeah.
Both parties knew what they were getting into.
Can I ask you something? Who is the industry? I mean, is there an association, or is it individual dispensary? I mean, the individual dispensaries tend to be little guys, so.
It has been, from the very beginning, rather nebulous, unclear, clouded exactly as to where this comes from.
Yeah.
From personal interactions with, early on in the process, when it was first medical marijuana and then recreational, there were people that were coming into my office, and they all seemed to be fairly coordinated in what their presentation was, and yet I couldn't figure out who was actually coordinating that. We had veterans coming in saying that they wanted to run veterans-owned businesses, particularly in the medical side. We had entrepreneurs coming in on the recreational saying we're interested. We had people who were established in other businesses saying that they wanted to get into this. It was a broad range, but I found that their comments and their expressed agenda were very similar, and I don't know
Interesting.
who
yeah.
it was. And there may be right now, there may be an industry group, but I haven't had any dealings with them.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
I guess, I think it's probably kind of sad or not really surprising that not necessarily you two, but others in the legislature are being influenced by probably the money from the cannabis wanting to change the rules midstream. The fact that we may be looking at a retroactive clawback of this money, I can't even get my head around that. I mean, I know the legislature can be kind of ass backwards sometimes, but this is beyond that. There's no way that can happen, and I hope you guys, looks like you both agree with it. At a minimum, you can't come back to us on something that we did 2 years ago. Because if we do that, we may have to should we revote, the town revote, even if we want to have these, because we voted them with the idea that we were going to have these host community agreements. So I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, knowing how murky some things are up on Beacon Hill, unfortunately, so.
It's, well, I'll take a yes. And even, it's unclear even if the town were to roll back and say, we don't want to have community host agreements, it's unclear exactly what that means. Does that mean that these dispensaries exist no differently than a 7-Eleven with no obligations? Do they exist in that manner for a period of time? It's really unclear.
Well, I meant even having them here, not necessarily that they continue to operate, whether we voted to allow recreation here with the understanding that we could negotiate these host community agreements for our, to offset the downsides of these things and to, take some burden off the taxpayers. So, so when I say undo it, I mean undo it, which I know that won't happen either, but I appreciate what you guys are doing and will continue to do for us. I just wish your colleagues would kind of come around.
Well, I think one thing Doug could do, and I'm sure they're already, because again, I've spoken to, I have colleagues that I work for Instance, you probably know I'm along with the senator, I'm a big advocate for senior tax relief. And I have a number of folks, other parties over the other side of the political spectrum that I talk to, and the bottom line is this has come up, and they are just as concerned with it in Sudbury and down in Attleboro and out in Clinton as we are here, because it's having the exact same impact. So I don't think all is lost, and I don't know, maybe this is something strategic to make it sound as worse as it possibly could, and then they'll draw back and get what they actually want. But I can't imagine something like that standing. I just don't. I don't think we could be in a position where, because it would really hurt, particularly communities that are not especially wealthy. It would really hurt those communities, and I just can't see that the House would, or the Senate would tolerate that. I tell you, my three senators and the representatives that I work with, none of them favor this. None of them.
If I could just, there are some who do, and I agree. I find it, I'm not a proponent of marijuana being, as I said, legalized, but I also served in local government and did a lot of budgeting work, working in the mayor's office, and then as chair of the finance committee for 8 years in the Quincy City Council. And it is beyond me, my understanding, that all of a sudden there would be a retroactive clawback of what's been spent,
Right.
and then a retroactive impact on the agreement itself. I'm fully aware what that would mean economically or financially for the town. And common sense would say that this should not stand, but recognize that as much as there are people who feel that way, there are people in the legislature as well that firmly believe it's full speed ahead, that we have to do everything possible to allow this industry to prosper and grow. And if that means sacrificing something in terms of agreements that had been made, some of them may come down on the side of sacrificing those agreements and the revenue streams for the communities. And then just one quick related note, when you ask about who's behind all this, well, we've gone very quickly in the Commonwealth to from cannabis to sports betting, and now the latest push is for legalization of psychedelics, because some people believe that they have some medicinal value. They may, but we haven't studied it. We don't know, and yet there is a growing push in the legislature to legalize psychedelics, and it's taking on the same pattern as cannabis, sports betting, and we're heading down that road as well. And so, who's behind all this? I really don't know, but it's incredible.
As an aside, one of my biggest beefs with the dispensaries is that is driving behind somebody who's driving 10 miles an hour because they're high. Maybe the state can have like pot leaves in one lane on the highway so they'll know how to drive or something. But I couldn't imagine driving behind somebody who's shrooming out. I mean, that would really be bad. So, not that I'm an aggressive driver, but, it's kind of ridiculous.
I have a comment.
That's
That's a tough comment to follow. I'm just
Shrooming
Yeah.
out.
I'm just
She
going to
said shrooming out. I think that might be the
I'm going to
first
make it more
ever,
boring. But
selectmen's meeting.
the senator did ask about, if the board wanted to take a vote. I would encourage you guys to take a vote right now to formally request corrective legislation to address all these retroactive questions that are pending before the Cannabis Control Commission right now. So I
I'll
didn't.
entertain a motion to formally take a vote.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll take a motion.
A motion to
versus-
approve.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Great. Thank you.
Definitely.
Unanimous. That's good.
Okay, so we'll move on. Gentlemen, I
We
appreciate.
could actually work with you, Doug, in terms of putting together legislation to the House Council. Of course, I coordinate with Senator Dean's office and produce something along those lines.
So we'll move on, because I do have a couple other things, and I'm sure the board might as well. And by no means do I want you guys to feel at all like you're on the hot seat. This is a conversation between, people with mutual respect, So with that said, civil service, town voted at town meeting, which is our governing body, highest form of government within the town, to remove ourselves from civil service. Currently, our police department is out of civil service because they did not go, they went in through town meeting. The fire department is not as of yet. As of, I believe this afternoon, the municipal report was filed with the state. However, it's come to our attention that there's several communities, I believe 20 maybe, Doug, is it? 20 communities that currently have voted their way out of civil service, and there's no action being taken at the State House in regards to the requests of town meeting, which in that case, and this hasn't happened here, we just filed the report today, but for me, that feels as though the people that are represented to represent the towns should stand behind the vote that was taken by the communities that they represent, right? Like, that's how it's supposed to work. So we filed the report, and my assumption is, knowing both of you guys, that you guys will do what you can to, see this through the House to the Senate. But where there's no action being taken on reports that have been filed as far back as 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I believe it was, what is there to say that this will ever happen, that the report will ever go through and will come out of civil service in the fire department? And then what is the plan in place when we get to a point we're not able to hire firefighters anymore, and that in turn puts the chief in a position where he can't fulfill his duty and accurately or safely protect the residents of the town of Rockland because we'll be severely understaffed? So what are the shortfall, what are the options there if we don't get applicants through civil service?
Last first, I can't speak to the legality of that.
Uh-huh.
The Senator's a lawyer, maybe he can speak to it, but I cannot speak to the legality of what you spoke about in terms of a remedy. I can tell you the legislative reality is that, I thought it was 21, but maybe it's 20, I think there might be one working towards the way. But every single bill to change civil service is tied up right now, and I think it has a little bit to do with the commission that I was just appointed to, examining civil services and civil service and how we can improve it. The politics behind it are pretty simple and straightforward. There are groups who believe that pulling out of the civil service, and there are a number of groups now, even since I was sworn in, and I've served on the Civil Service Committee since I was first sworn in 2015, and I've never missed a meeting. So I can speak with some knowledge about, give historical perspective, that there's just simply no appetite anymore for what would happen if the civil service would just simply collapse, or it would remain with only larger communities. And, we know, for instance, Quincy makes it work, Brockton makes it work, Worcester makes it work, but I will tell you one thing that is happening in Boston, and this is regardless of whether in civil service or not, is that young men and young women are not volunteering to become firefighters for the most part, and not volunteering to become police officers even more. And I'll add to that, they're not volunteering to be corrections officers almost at all. They are probably in the worst situation of any of the public safety community. I was up not too long ago talking to the union head up at the union steward among the officers up in Shirley, and he compared their situation to akin to being a prisoner themselves, because they have mandatory overtime, and so they don't get to go home and take a little nap. So we have a problem recruiting people overall, inside civil service and outside civil service. Within the civil service system, I think the objections are two. Number one, you heard veterans, and I think that's simple and straightforward. There's not a person who has looked at it that I know of, certainly nobody in the Veterans Administration and veterans organizations, whether it be the DAV, the VFW, any of the Jewish or Franco-American or Italian-American vet. We have people who have looked that over, and it said there's no question. We did a study, in fact, to take a look at departments who recently have pulled out of civil service, and they came to the conclusion that it basically helps nepotism, which leads me to the second reason of this, is that people who sometimes, at once upon a time, I would say maybe 6 years ago, might have advocated for this, have come to the conclusion also that it's better to work within the system because you would have a better bet at promoting some of specifically the diversity that they want on forces, and that in fact, again, it doesn't work to promote diversity, it works to promote nepotism. Having said that, we are looking on the committee, and I am just going to throw this out there. I have, it's kind of a little bit what we have another inept system. It's a bit far afield, but it isn't really, because it affects people in this town. We have a very inept system the state has foisted on our local housing authorities, which used to be called Housing for the Elderly. And I've worked with one member of your board trying to get people on there. And because of what they have imposed, they are kind of going to a lottery system. So my thought is maybe a good compromise is let the civil service system work once. Go one list. And if it doesn't work the first list, then it reverts to the chiefs doing whatever they need to do to hire a person. My hope is that we can put together a system and make changes in the system, which is admittedly very underfunded. This is going to sound unusual coming from me, but we really need to hire a lot more bureaucrats to make the system work. Because they are understaffed, they're underfunded. Well, it wouldn't amount to a whole lot of people, but certainly up to 100, because they unlike, for instance, the military or the federal civil service, they don't have the capacity to test. They cannot return they can't even follow their own regulations in terms of resolving disputes. They can't get the test back within their own regulations to the chiefs. And again, I think we probably may relook the residency requirements. The last time, and I talked to them last week, the people, we have quite a few Boston police officers and retired police officers that work in this district, Plymouth 5th, and they have said that we need to relook the residency requirements, because a lot of good people in the suburbs are not being hired. But having said that, again, whereas the Army's 28% short. For some reason, the younger people now, or even let's just say the people who might be eligible, the men and women who might be eligible, just aren't signing up. And they're not signing up for any of this. And it goes as far as the Army's Ranger regiments and the SEAL teams and the airborne units. They're just not showing up. So when Chief Duffy told me he had, a while back, I guess, he had listed that there was a vacancy when I'm 60 years old, I was 1981. The class of 1981, if there was a vacancy on any fire department around here, he would have had 10, 15 people. Quincy probably would have had 40, all right? And he didn't have one. Mm-hmm. And I've had the chiefs in both Hanson, Norwell, Hanover, and Rockland tell me the same thing. And the state police are having the same problem. So it certainly needs to be addressed, but to address your concern, I think the short of it is I don't believe any of those bills are going to move until they reach some conclusion on how it is that it's going to be resolved fairly, because now there's a real concern that it does not address, in addition to my concerns having to do with hurting younger veterans, and this absolutely does hurt younger veterans when you pull out. There's also some questions about diversity and who actually is hired under the system or something. Again, I didn't mean to filibuster there, but
No, I know that's what you guys tend to
I've spent
do.
a lot of time dealing with this.
So I'll defer my question then to Senator Keenan, since you said that he was an attorney. Is it legal to even sit there and ignore a town meeting vote? If a system is in place, but the system is clearly broken, and leave a town in a position where you're jeopardizing the public safety of its residents, is it legal to leave that town meeting vote ignored on the legislative floor?
I don't know. I would tell you that we do have many home rule petitions that come to the legislature every year that don't get passed. They don't get passed for a bunch of different reasons. One may just be the calendar of the legislature doesn't permit it. They might come in late. Two, it may be a subject matter that is part of a bigger picture, and there's a concern about whether to pass a home rule petition, and that then becoming a precedent. So there are a lot of different issues as to why home rule petitions don't pass, as to whether there's any legal requirement on the legislature to pass home rule petitions. It's an interesting question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. On civil service, it's clearly a broken system.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working. If it were working, communities wouldn't be looking to get out of it. And beyond the issues, and I think Dave is right, there's a lot of demographic issues here. There's a small population to fill these positions, and they are not, right now, that population, the younger people, aren't as interested because it's means for police and for fire or working EMS. You go to work physically, and you work odd shifts, long shifts, 24-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, depending on what 8-hour shifts, depending on what department you may be in and what type of first responder you may be. So there's that challenge, that there are a lot of options available to young people right now, including the option of waking up at 8:30 and logging onto your computer at 9 and working till 5 with a lunch break, and doing all that from home, as opposed to going to a station to work. Or even with nurses, we're having the same problem. It's across the board, real challenges in the workforce. But if the system were working, I don't think you'd see as many communities looking to get out. And from a political standpoint, I think the representative had put it, stated it, it's really, there's some competing interest right now as to what's the best way to go forward. And then when there is a commission formed, the general reaction of the legislature is to not act until there's some sort of report from a commission. And that is kind of where we're at to some degree now, notwithstanding the scope of what the commission may be, there's a general sense, they're looking at it. And so that all comes together. There are some communities that still want to stay in civil service, but they're frustrated. But they understand that when it worked pretty well. There are some communities that are so frustrated right now that they want to get out. There are some communities that even before the problems with civil service reached the stage they are, that just wanted to have local control over their hiring processes. Civil service was put in place initially to prevent favoritism, to promote diversity and all those types of things. And I think those are worthy goals.
Mm-hmm.
But we're at a point where it's just not working. Hopefully we'll get some suggestions as to what can make it work legislatively, and then that will prompt a better system and fewer communities looking to get out. I find really interesting, and David and I had talked about this, his proposal or his thought about giving civil service basically the first shot. Do it and do it right, and the town's happy. And if in that hiring process you don't do it right, then the default becomes the town having some ability to do things on their own. It's a very interesting idea. I haven't heard it elsewhere. I think it's really something that we should look at.
But isn't it similar to the point that, Rockland may have voted to leave civil service, but if somehow civil service is fixed, we'd have the option to go back in.
Correct.
But why should we wait around, in a flux, waiting for them to fix a problem when we're losing the ability to recruit candidates ourselves and have to go off of a list that is producing literally no candidates for us? So, the option to always go back in, and I think I said this to your representative a few months back when we were heading towards the town meeting. I said, if you guys ever get to a point where the legislature and the Senate is able to fix civil service, and it's something that makes sense and works for everybody, then of course we'd come back into it. In the meantime, give us an opportunity to create that system here. And you guys can choose to adopt what we do, because you might find that what we do is actually what works best. But to have our hands tied and say that the vote of town meeting isn't something that the legislature branch is willing to consider and move forward and allow us to do what we have to do to protect our citizens. That's, for me, that just feels like, it doesn't feel, and again, it's not directed at you guys, but it feels as though our opinions are being ignored and we're not being represented by those that are supposed to represent us. And again, not you guys, because you guys have always been very, respectful and cooperative, and we've done a great job, I think, collaborating over the years. But I want to make sure that it's understood where the position of the town is that we asked out, we did our research, the chiefs presented at a town meeting. What more do we have to do to protect our citizens?
And also, if I may, thank you very much, both of you, for being here. We sincerely appreciate it and value your time and your being here, because we absolutely need your help. And you know, if this, may this just be a demonstration of how much we need your help. And my question is, along the lines of what the chair was saying, with Fire Union Local 1602, our select board vote, the May town meeting, all voting in unison to remove civil service, that's Rockland speaking to you, because we have a broken system and we need more immediate help. I respect Representative DeCoe's idea of potentially finding a compromise and on a big picture down the road that may be helpful, but right now I also see what we need, and the town of Rockland has spoken. So my question is, you know, basically, I'm going to use the word aggressively, but how aggressively or like what can you do to make our voice heard? Because, you know, at this point, our waiting until, you know, the Commission on Civil Service comes up with a way to fix it is really going to hurt our town. And along the same line, you know, on the cannabis issue, this could cripple our town, and you know, the kind of bait and switch of which the town, the state has I'm going to use the word pulled, but that's transpired. You know, it's really an emergency for our town, and we're just basically trying to see what can both of you do in terms of making our voice heard, and however you can communicate our needs would be greatly appreciated.
We keep after the committee chairs, and to some extent we can move them. The civil service is kind of, again, it's in a league of its own because of the level of discord among the committee members. And that's not to say that there are committee members the committees that aren't really functioning right now because of other reasons, and I'll leave that alone. I don't belong to any of them. And the civil service is just, I think at this point, they've come to the conclusion, as the senator said, that they're going to wait and do this because there's a lot of, again, a lot of diverse groups, but the diverse groups have largely come to the same conclusion after studying this, and is that pulling out of civil service helps nepotism. And that's about it hurts veterans, it hurts diversity, it hurts a lot of things, but it helps nepotism. That said, on the others, even and we went through them in what we presented, the two local options. They're moving, but they're moving slowly. And the way, the mechanical way you do this is just to keep asking them, take this up, considering both of what we have here in Rockland can be gavelled through in an informal. So it's just a matter of getting them off getting them going on the board and getting them through committees. So we've got a similar issue that we deal with, and that Hanover's pushing, that it's going slow, but the rep that chairs this particular commission happens to be from Quincy, so, and I get along with him well, so we'll get that heard and moved. The legislature has not been moving, admittedly, very fast, and if it were up to me, we would move faster and maybe come in on some Saturdays and Sundays to move things, but
So you guys had said to write letters. Would it be more powerful if we wrote it as a board, or would you like individual letters from all of us?
Both.
Both? Okay.
Write them as a board and individuals, and I
Okay.
think if individuals, write them to the chairs of committee. I mean, again, there's not much I disagree in terms of what the board's doing, and even with the billboards, I think you've raised the issue in the Transportation Committee. But we hope to exercise some oversight perhaps on that and take a look, particularly what their criteria are in making these decisions. Because once again, the criteria seems to be enriching the state while undermining the localities. It's not just and I've kind of segued over into billboards, but it's not a question of, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of the criteria they use, at least in my opinion. The senator might, but you ask them for an explanation, and to put it in writing, and they really can't give it to you.
There's
They really
also
can't. I'll
precedent.
give you a very quick example of that, and I'm still waiting for an answer. Probably once a month, maybe twice a month, somebody writes to me asking why, during the commute into Boston, you could use the breakdown lane going in and out. So why can't we use the breakdown lane on the commute down the Cape every summer on the weekends? And I am still waiting for the federal regulation of bureaucrat who says we can't do that. Now, the last person I was dealing with left, so I'm dealing with a new person, but it is interesting that they cite these regulations often, and you try to kind of go down the rabbit hole after them, and it's a mystery. But you would think that common sense would indicate you have a rush hour during Sundays coming north, and you have a rush hour Fridays and Saturdays going south towards the Cape. So maybe we could change the rules to say from May through September or so, we could use the breakdown lane going south. And if we were put to a vote, I think it would be 160-0 in the House. It would make sense, it's inclusive, but we can't do it. By the way, towards your remark regarding the cannabis lanes, I have actually put a bill in that doesn't address that, but actually heightens the fines enormously for people who are driving too slow in the travel lane. So we've all been behind people who are driving 50 and 55 miles an hour with people passing on the right. And so my hope is that we can pull that out. That has some support. I would welcome a letter regarding that.
Okay.
Doug?
Yeah, thanks. And I know this has been a long conversation. I don't want to draw it out too much longer, but I do just respectfully push back a little bit with a couple of Representative DeCoe's comments. Just on the point of minority representation and veteran representation, you said several times that leaving civil service will hurt minority recruitment, will hurt veterans. I personally strongly disagree with that. And if you just look at the facts right now, we're a civil service department. We have very few minorities and very few veterans. So we think we can do a better job. And I feel like you kind of made the case for us when you talked a bit about how difficult the job market is, people aren't applying. All the more reason to free us from being subject to these strict, rigid lists which don't work, and let us actually recruit. And we can recruit in ways to target all the different types of people that we think could best serve Rockland. So I think, and the chief is here, you certainly did tell me you disagree with me if you think anything I'm saying is inaccurate.
Mind if I speak?
Can I just finish one thought first and then turn it? Because I'm going to forget because my memory is not so good. Also, my concern with waiting is there are problems throughout the state. There's been civil service exams that the courts have tossed out and communities had to pay fines because the civil service exams were not fair to minorities. So the idea that we have to stay in civil service to protect minorities when their own tests actually hurt minorities, as verified by a judge, doesn't make sense to me. I'd also highlight that I believe there has been a legislative report done like a year and a half ago, and I don't think any action's been taken by the legislature on that. So I feel like we're just going to be waiting for years and years talking about this. And then I guess the last thing before, if the chair wants to turn it over to the chief, is just that we did just complete our municipal report. We haven't sent it to you yet. Your office will get that later this week or early next week. And that addresses all the types of things that Rep. DeCoste was talking about, how we would handle hiring and how we would handle all those other things. And I would stake my professional reputation, Chief Duffy's reputation, and this board, that we would do a professional job and it would absolutely not increase nepotism, as evidenced by the report that we've put in writing attached to our request to leave. So I hope that carries some weight and that's not just like a paperwork exercise that doesn't actually get reviewed on its merits.
Chief Duffy? Chief?
John Tonican, Representative DeCoste, good evening. On civil service, I Senator Keenan, I don't think we've ever had the pleasure to speak on this. Representative Coach, you and I sat down a little bit ago with the police chief. So civil service, broken in and out. Multiple times came out of, I can quote you one. Civil service, it is a broken system, it is inept. Hiring is only part of the whole entire civil service system. You also have the promotional aspect of it, and you also have the disciplinary aspect of it. I've been chief for 13 years, hiring yearly. I think I've hired over half of the department now, and of that, I have interviewed 4 veterans who have come down on our list for hire that I've actually interviewed. One of them went to another department, 2 of them backed out. We hired one who is currently a captain in our department. 1 out of 30 members do we have as a veteran. The hiring pool. Yes, the hiring pool is small across whether you're civil service or not. However, our hiring pool has been shrunken down to those that have just taken a specific civil service test. So we're taking a real larger pool of candidates, shrinking it down. We provide the epitome of medical care, being advanced life support. So we only hire paramedics. We take a pool and we shrink it down even further. Just like most of the South Shore towns from here all the way down to P-Town, we are paramedic system, that's all we hire. So the system is hurting us as far as hiring. Nepotism. And my next comment is not directed at any member in this audience tonight. However, you go to any civil service town, city, across the Commonwealth, across the nation, and I ask you to look at the rosters and start comparing last names. Civil service does not stop nepotism in any way whatsoever. Promoted, as Mr. Lapp said, it's just been ruled that the system is discriminatory in itself. And it's broken. The last current test that they just had is going to be, it's a fiasco. There's multiple answers to one question. It can't be answered by the same person the same way each time. So I'm surprised it hasn't even been thrown out yet. And then discipline. Discipline, there's been so many civil service cases throughout the history that they can cherry pick whichever they want. If they want to decide for the town, they're going to cherry pick the cases they want for the town. If they want to decide for the employee, they can pick for that. That's their system. We have to live under it for now. However, it took 2 years for us to resolve a disciplinary case in the town of Rockland. 2 years. Now, that was either 2 years the town had to waste money on lawyers and appeals and going to court thereafter, or if it was a wrongly accused employee, it was an employee that was outpaid for 2 years. Where does that work? So, I ask you, for a broken and inept system, your words, why would you not help us out of that system? Why would you want to keep us in that system? So what I ask you to be the leader that we voted you to be for the town of Rockland and push forward our home rule petition, and everybody other's civil service home rule petition, be the leader and work for the people of the state and not for the industries and not for the special interests. Thank you.
We talked earlier about speaking loudly and clearly. Thank you. That's about as loud and clearly as you can speak. We'll redouble our efforts and see if we can find our way through kind of the mess that is the legislative process as it relates to civil service. Some bills do make it through. Most of the times there are kind of exemptions from civil service when it comes time for chiefs and lieutenants or captains or different ranks. But I hear you. Thank you.
So I think we've kept you guys up there for quite some time, and I don't want you guys, like I said, I don't want it to seem as though, anybody's giving you guys a hard time, because like I said, you guys have always helped us anytime we've ever asked you to. But I think, Select Person Needham kind of hit the nail on the head. We're at a point where we're beyond frustrated, and we really need your help. We really need you know, all the great things you guys have done for the town over the years, we need it all and then some, because, you know, some of the topics that we haven't even gone to, because I think we've talked quite a bit, you know, the billboard that was denied by Mass DOT, Rep. DeCoste mentioned that, so I think we're okay there. MBTA zoning requirements. We have no information on it, but it's adopt this MBTA zone or else. And it's like, or else what? Well, don't apply for grants. So you're not gonna give us money unless we adopt an area in town for MBTA zoning, for MBTA housing. We adopt the area, and then 5 years from now, they force 40B low-income housing on us and say, well, you adopted the area. Well, we only adopted it because you told us you weren't going to give us money to fix our roads if we didn't adopt it. So, you know, the bully pulpit from the legislative branch is getting pretty frustrating. And, you know, I don't think it may not be from the branch, but, you know, Representative DeCoste, you said the bureaucrats, you know, and I don't know who's pushing these agendas. There's that. I mean, there's
Are you
PFAS.
talking about the MBTA? I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, MBTA.
Well, it's just, you know, there's, again,
They got a report
There
that said
are,
that low-income housing.
there are a
is
number of groups, and I would, again, I'm a little bit strident on this.
I
I'm
know.
probably the least supportive of 40B in the legislature, at least of 160 members. I don't like it at all. I think it's coercive. I think it puts people at each other's throats. I know it doesn't really produce any housing. If you want affordable housing, you go down the Rockland Housing Authority. That's real affordable housing. And every year, we have to get special earmarks. We do our best so they can paint their walls. And there's something that we should be expanding when possible. I mean, on the housing authorities that I have, for instance, they're very similar, the numbers. Remember, in both Hanover and, Norwell, which controls Cohasset, and in Rockland, the average unit runs for $400 per unit in terms of rent, and that's inclusive of everything, water and heat and everything. All right, that's inclusive. Not a 40B development where we're going to go by some unclear measure of community wealth that has to fall within such a band,
it's very
and then
snob
it's
zoning,
10%,
right?
and then the other 90% is going to be $3,000 or $4,000 a month apartments like they have in Taunton. I can't imagine what they're charging in Quincy, but
it's
like
really,
they have in
like,
Taunton.
40B is really snob zoning, right?
Well,
Basically.
I'm not sure it's snob zoning, and I
Well,
would,
if you have a-
I look at it this way. I think the people of Rockland and Norwell and Hanover and Hanson are quite capable of zoning themselves. And I have never seen anybody up on Beacon Hill. And again, I've sat through I haven't missed a housing meeting that had to do with 40B or anything like it. And I have never seen anything from the rigorous intellects that come out of DHCD and CHAPA and the rest of the bureaucratic organizations up there, all of whom, by the way, go back and forth between the developers and then back to CHAPA and developers and back to DHCD. It's an incestuous group. All 40B, in my opinion, does is allow private developers to build their own private portfolios of real estate, and they'll have a tiny little bit that will be they'll label affordable, but it's not really affordable. The rest of it is free market, and they do quite well. And as you know, with Shingle Mill and others, we have River Marsh in Pembroke, a complex that was rejected out of hand when a virtually identical private builder tried to do it. And it now looks that, although to their credit, the town of Pembroke has been quite good about shooting it down. In Norwell, there are several. In Rockland, I don't have to tell you about Shingle Mill. And there are things brewing in Hanson. And I'm sure the senator, if I gave him a chance, he could give me a million bad examples in Quincy. So I am very aggressive, and I think in just keep fighting them and make sure that first of all your bureaucrats are on board, so you don't have a situation like you had in one of the other towns I represent, where you had a bureaucrat in the planning board coordinating with a developer behind the backs of everyone to include 4 out of 5 members of the Board of Selectmen, because this fit her vision of what Norwell should be. So you want to be careful of that. But the bottom line is that the MBTA zoning and the 40B, there are some towns that have told the state to keep their money. Middleborough has, Rentham has, and their whole list, and the list is growing. It is definitely coercive, and it could result in the destruction of your town. People move to Rockland because Rockland is a nice place to live. You know, if they wanted to live with a 5-story, 10-story building in their backyard, they would have moved to Revere. All right, and I am assuming that down here you've got plenty of talent and zoning and planning and the Board of Selectmen, and if you need any help from Beacon Hill, you'll give them a call. So I didn't mean to, I tend to be a little bit strident on this issue, but I've dealt with it since I was a selectman in Norwell. And I've just seen absolutely zero positive come out of the 40B system.
Senator Keenan, you were striding in this issue.
Yeah, I'd just be curious to see how he really feels.
Yeah.
He didn't hold back on that one.
Yeah, just a quick point. Not getting into the merits of the MBTA Communities Act, but one of the things that did occur there was pushback relative to whether there could be mixed use within the zone and whether a building that has mixed use could count towards the units. And there was a lot of pushback on that, and it's been very effective. And so as we kind of draw the analogy between that working on that side, going back to the issues that you have relative to cannabis, when the local communities speak up against some of the regulatory actions, it can be effective. And so the vote tonight is very helpful. We'll take that vote and use it to your best advantage and our advantage to advance your concerns at the State House. And so I think there's a lesson to be learned from the MBTA Communities Act, again, in the narrow sense of communities' response at the local level was impeccable.
And if I could, just add, there might be a shining light in terms of the MBTA Communities Act is going to crash a little bit into the reality of what the water situation is here and everywhere else.
Great segue.
I think that, I think there are going to be federal limitations in terms of just simply what we're allowed to draw out of the aquifer. And as has to do with the river district down here in the Scenic River.
So that's a great
The EPA, there's a little bit of good news there.
It's a great segue, Dave, because my next bring up was the state DEP PFAS requirements, how stringent they are. The state doesn't provide us nearly enough money to support the cities and towns to fix the problem that we didn't create, and a goal that we didn't create, and that the last time I had you guys here, I think a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, actually probably 2 years ago at this point, it was an arbitrary number. Somebody came up with 20 parts per trillion, which is the equivalent of 1/3 of a drop of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. There's more PFAS in microwave popcorn. There's more PFAS in non-stick pans. Obviously, PFAS is something that we want to remediate and we want to eliminate from our water supply. But the fear that was created to the point that we have elderly citizens in our town boiling bottles of water and telling me that they're afraid to take a shower because the PFAS is going to kill them. It's incredibly irresponsible by whoever the bureaucrats that put that message out there, and in turn forced our communities to ultimately find us $10,000 per quarter if we're not under the 20 parts per trillion, because it costs about $10,000 per quarter to send the notifications out that we're over the 20 parts per trillion. It's a problem that was created by bureaucrats within the state, and we've been given some money to fix it, but that money could have gone to other things, and we could have gone to this 20 parts per trillion at a much slower pace as opposed to wasting it on postage, telling everybody that it's the same water that they've had for the last, 100 years.
The national rate is 70 parts.
70 parts per trillion, yeah. So, I know.
Yeah,
I know you guys are on the same page. I've said this to you
I'm aware of
guys
the
before.
concerns, but I can't answer
There's
the
nothing.
scientific.
Yeah, there's no scientific return to it. And then I guess the last one that I have, and if anybody else has anything else, the state requires the school departments to provide extremely costly sped services, transportation without 100% reimbursement, which really makes it impossible for us to budget for sped transfer students throughout the district. In fact, we've run into some issues within the town of Rockland recently where one student transfers in and their cost for transportation is over $500 a day. That's one student. So what is the state plan, or what their thought process is on monetary reimbursement of sped costs? Or is there any plan? Or is it just figure it out
The plan is
yourselves?
to continue to increase funding to the local municipalities. I can't remember exactly what the
Sped
increase.
circuit breaker, too,
Yeah,
as
sped
well.
circuit breaker.
But the strictness of the rules itself, everything that has to be done and the services that have to be achieved and maintained, increase that cost constantly, in some cases unnecessarily. And it's like one of those,
If you had, we work very well with Dr. Crone, he's
Yeah.
never shy about it. And my first earmark is always to the Rockland
I know.
SPED program, because you do just a fantastic job over there. But in terms of transportation, if there's things that they see that can be regulated, improved, or things that are necessary, we can certainly bring that to the governor has been very, our new governor, to her credit, I think has been very, has looked at things carefully, and she's doing a good job in a lot of these ways, and I think she has an open ear in terms of improvements that she can make. And I think in that respect, if we can point to things that can be changed, they might look at changing them or adjusting them. If there's things that I've been very impressed actually with a lot of her appointments. And if I had, by the way, a chance had I been able to vote for one of the budgets, the Senate or House or the compromise, I wish I could have voted for her budget, because her budget was actually, in my estimation, did a lot more for the local communities. And I think a lot of her appointments are keeping an open mind, and they listen. So I think if there were things that certainly it would help if 10 or 15 local superintendents said, hey, and school committees said, look, there are things here that we can do better, and if you could eliminate or modify these, I think they would listen to you, and you might even see some adjustments. Is that fair?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I think the better approach would be, and I'm not sure we'll ever adopt it, we have a statewide fund that specifically covers special education transportation costs, because it is the great unknown. You could have somebody from one town move into another town, that person move into a different town, and it's a giant, it's a big puzzle as to where they're going to end up and who's going to bear the cost of that. So I personally feel that there should be a statewide fund that pays for those transportation costs. But we do not have that. So what we've been trying to do is to dedicate more money each fiscal year to the communities through local aid that will help them in some ways offset, not directly because of the way it's spent in the accounting, but to make more money available locally. And when I was doing the budget work in the city of Quincy, it was the most frustrating part. That actually, and police overtime. You just never knew what was going to happen with those budgets. And we would budget a certain amount, and oftentimes it was exceeded. And when it wasn't, it was nice to have that little pool of money available for other things. But it can be very, very expensive. Some communities are looking at doing more things in-house. For instance, in the city of Quincy, they have dedicated the resources to open up a special education center for some students that, because of lack of ability within the system to provide that education, they were shipping them out at great cost, including transportation. They're now covering that. It's not open yet, but they're hoping to reduce that cost by doing it in-house. There has been some talk among some municipalities of joining together to come up with programs like that, so that instead of transporting somebody 50 miles a day or 60 miles a day, it may just be something that's done regionally. But there hasn't been a lot of push on that, but there are some discussions. So there are ways to handle it, but the plan right now is just to continue to dedicate as many resources. One thing that we don't have a really good handle on right now is how much funding we will see from the Fair Share Amendment. The proceeds of that, the millionaire's tax, are dedicated for transportation and for education. This was the first budget where that money was accounted for, and it was spent in a lot of different ways. So each year that will give municipalities, legislators the opportunity to take a look at those funds and see if the growth in that income can be used to offset local education costs.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions for them? Gentlemen, if you guys have anything for us, do you guys have any questions for us, or any update you want to give us? I know we've had you guys for quite some time. You guys are, I always feel bad. I feel like this is the last year you'll ever come down to an invitation that I give you guys.
Yeah.
If you see
Happy to come.
something, in the
I'm sure.
report that we provided, that you think could be clarified, or additions to it that you might, a paragraph about whatever, let us know, and we can work with you on the draft. And I think we got some homework as regards maybe looking at some specific legislation, and we'll work with you directly on that.
Well, I've always been a firm believer in speaking truth to power, and I'll never hold back. I'll always tell you guys what I think, and I've always appreciated your honesty with us and the hard work that you've done in representing the residents of town. And I felt that, and we as a board, I think we've all felt very frustrated, and we felt as though we've sent letters, you guys have replied to the letters, but we felt it'd be very, much more powerful statement if you guys actually heard the pleas from us individually, in person, taking that vote, and we'll continue to send letters as a board and as individuals as well to support you guys in the House and in the Senate in moving these bills forward.
If more towns did what you're doing, bringing us in,
Yeah.
conveying what your interests are, saying it, I know I've said it many times, but saying it very clearly to us, if more towns did that, it would make our job easier, because we wouldn't be lone voices, or even one of 5 voices on different issues. It would be people who could say, I heard from my select board, this is a big issue, we've got to address it. If other towns don't do that, their reps and senators aren't hearing it. So it is good that we hear it, so thank you.
So is it possible for Chief Duffy to go to the State House?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Bring him in there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and talk, seriously, talk to the Civil Service Committee.
Well, there's actually members of the commission that, Representative Dooley, will work directly, and he is
Yeah.
hearing it, his former representatives, is newly appointed to the commission, and they are working. So I think they're aware of this, and I am
Oh,
hopeful
yeah.
that something will move forward.
Well, it hasn't, and my point is, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? So if they hear directly from where the rubber hits the road, that might have a bigger impact. So, just a suggestion.
If I could offer one final comment, I want to thank Doug and all of you.
Yeah.
You've been great to work with. We have regular communication, and we really appreciate it. We get clear direction, and we're not always successful, but we know what direction we have to head in, because you make it pretty clear, so thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda, Southfield Redevelopment Authority, Union Point zoning bylaws amendments.
You want me just to
Yeah,
tee it up
you wanna tee it up for me,
for
Doug?
you, Mike? Sure. So we've been talking about this for a while now. I did put in your packet the timeline, which we've talked about at several meetings now, and I added another column of check marks for milestones that we're meeting. So tonight is September 5th, so we really have three major things that we need to do today. You need to acknowledge receipt of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment from Southfield Redevelopment Authority on behalf of the master developer. You need to formally refer it to the planning board so they can go through their public hearing process. And as part of that process, I believe the chairman of the planning board has agreed to allow the master developer to concurrently hold their public outreach meeting at the same time as the planning board public hearing, which makes it more efficient. That's what was also noted on my timeline. And then lastly, the third thing you should do is formally vote to put it on the special town meeting warrant. And normally I wouldn't be so kind of directive with my suggestions to you, but in this case, there's, legislation that governs the former Naval Air Base, and we have milestones that we have to meet in order to be in compliance with the law. You have a ton of backup material and for the public's edification, so they know. We have a set of 3-ring binders probably this big. There's a set available for the public to review at the town clerk's office. But more importantly, every single document is uploaded on the town's website, rockland-ma.gov. On the home page, on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of blue buttons. Click the blue button for current projects, current development projects. Scroll to the bottom, you'll see Union Point. You click the little arrow for Union Point, and then you got to scroll back up to the top to see the documents. Every single thing that's on paper is available online for anybody to download. Again, you have in your packet, in addition to all the binders which you've received, in addition to the electronic links, the cover letter from the chairman of the SRA kind of formally referring this to you. You have some additional detail on the 3 motions that I just discussed, and then you have the full text of the proposed zoning bylaw. That's like the main sort of what I would call the meat of the proposal. Again, this is really intended to be more procedural, meeting the timelines in the law, accepting it, referring it, putting it on the warrant. There are representatives from the master developer here if you did have questions, but I would just kind of be mindful of the fact that there is a planning board public hearing process and public outreach meeting that's really probably the best place to get into a lot of depth. But this is your meeting, you can do whatever you want. So I hope that's helpful, and like I said, there are people here to answer questions. They didn't have a presentation necessarily.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Or-
Yeah, well, I mean, I read the entire 115-page document and combed through it, and I have a lot of questions, but I'll save it for the planning board meeting. But just to tell the public, there are, I believe that everybody's worked really hard and very efficiently and effectively in tying this very difficult rug together, right? It's the rug that ties the room together, if I can quote the Big Lebowski. And I feel the three main benefits for voting for the zoning for the Southfield Authority is it'll be an increase of $4 to $6 million in tax revenue to the town every year, which is stupendous. The developers can possibly cover the costs of our much-needed sewer plant in Rockland. And the third is, there's a high possibility that Rockland will have its own grocery store. So, at the very least, those are incredible benefits for the town. And it's very, very exciting. So the first step for us is to improve the zoning at the special town meeting on November 7th. So anybody that has questions or concerns before then, please contact Doug or anybody on this board, and we'll find the answers so that you can be as informed as possible for the vote on November 7th.
And I should have added, if I can jump in, Mike, the public hearing, the planning board public hearing that will be with the master developers public hearing is on September 26th.
Yep.
At the high school auditorium, September 26th.
Okay. All right, so Doug, from a procedural standpoint, should I read each of the motions?
I would do each
Yep.
one separately, and I would just note that we prepared this as listing Article 1, 2, and 3 because there are 3 articles, but that is not necessarily the order on the warrant. They could end up being later in the warrant, but I think it's fine to list them as 1, 2, and 3 for now.
Okay, so I'll make the following motions, or I'll entertain the following motions. No, I'll make them. I'll make the following motion. I move that the board accept and put on file the following materials which were enclosed with a letter dated August 30th, 2023, from the Chair of the Southfield Redevelopment Authority, the zoning and land use bylaws for NAS South Weymouth, including Master Development Plan entitled Master Development Plan Mixed Use Development District with Core Development Area dated March 3rd, 2023, and accompanying supporting materials. And 2, the South Weymouth Naval Air Station Zoning District Map, Exhibit A, dated May 23rd, 2023. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's unanimous. I further move that the board refer the following materials which were enclosed with the letter dated August 30th, 2023, from the Chair of the Southfield Redevelopment Authority to the Rockland Planning Board to conduct the requisite public hearing. 1, the zoning and land use bylaws for NAS South Weymouth, including the Master Development Plan entitled Master Development Plan Mixed Use Development District with Core Development Area dated March 3rd, 2023, and accompanying supporting materials. And 2, the South Weymouth Naval Air Station Zoning District Map, Exhibit A, dated May 23rd, 2023. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's unanimous. I further move that the Board of Selectmen hereby sponsor the following articles and direct the town manager administrator to place such articles on the warrant for the November 7th town meeting with any such changes as may be recommended by town council. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to approve the zoning and land use bylaws for NAS South Weymouth, including the Master Development Plan entitled Master Development Plan Mixed Use Development District with Core Development Area dated March 3rd, 2023, and accompanying supporting materials, and on file with the town clerk, or to take any other action relative hereto. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to approve the South Weymouth Naval Air Station Zoning District Map, Exhibit A, dated May 23rd, 2023, and on file with the town clerk, or to take any action relative thereto. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to amend the Rockland zoning bylaw and map to provide that notwithstanding anything to the contrary in the Rockland zoning bylaw and map, any land located within Rockland that is located within the boundaries of the former South Weymouth Naval Air Station shall be governed by the relevant Southfield Redevelopment Authority documentation, including the zoning and land use bylaws for NAS South Weymouth and South Weymouth Naval Air Station Zoning District Map Exhibit A, dated May 23rd, 2023, each as on file with the town clerk or take any other relative action thereto. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor? That is unanimous. And I also make a motion that we place these articles on, I think I just did that. Yeah, I just did that, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, all that reading, I forgot where I was. Okay, so that's complete. We've referred that to the planning board going forward, and their public hearing is September 26th in the high school auditorium. At what time?
I'd have to check, 6:30 or 7.
Just show
Yeah.
up anytime
Yeah.
on the 26th. That works. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda, APA recommended allotment to the Abington and Rockland Joint Waterworks. Doug.
Thanks, Mike. So if you go into your binder right before the number 5, you'll see there's one page, which is the master spreadsheet that I've been sharing with you all along on all of our ARPA commitments. I've highlighted in yellow 2 additional allocations that I'm recommending. The first is for, and it's interesting because you were just talking about this, Mike, with the senator and the state rep. The water department has explained that we need additional filters for.
Because why wouldn't we?
Right, why wouldn't we, to deal with PFAS, to meet state DEP requirements. I'm giving you the upper range here. It could be a little less, but it's likely going to cost around $200,000, maybe a little less. So this is 50% for us. Abington will cover the other 50% from their ARPA funds. So
Have they voted on that yet?
Abington?
Yeah.
I don't know if they formally have, but I've spoken to their town manager about it, and he gave me assurances that that would not be a problem. So I strongly recommend that. And then this next one is pretty interesting. I don't know if any of you heard about it yet or not, but there's a small regional group consisting of Hingham, which is kind of leading the way, but it's going to space on the towns like Hingham.
Hull.
Hull was there a little bit. It was Hanover, Abington, maybe Pembroke, just a handful of towns near us would like to explore trying to connect to the MWRA and whether it's feasible, possible or not to help increase our water supply. The MWRA is aware that there's this small group that's just exploring it. We've had one formal meeting already of staff with town managers, et cetera, and representatives from the water departments. Crystal Cameron was there representing the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks. So the long and the short of it is kind of like the next step. All the towns expressed interest in, yeah, let's look at it. We'd be crazy not to. So the next step would be to hire an engineering firm to really look at all the engineering details, routes, costs, land takings, all that kind of thing. So the second item that I'm recommending, and this is kind of a guess right now, but I feel like it should be a good guess for now, is I put in $25,000 for us, assuming Abington did another $25,000, and then say $50,000 from the other towns, to get a robust engineering feasibility study on the potential of connecting to MWRA. I think that's short money well spent for that potential.
Would we be entering that as a group?
Regionally, yeah. Sounds
Well, this would just be a
Regional thing?
study just to look at, all those questions. Do they have the capacity? What would the cost be? What would the timing be? Where would the pipes go?
Yeah.
Which towns would go first? Every question you can think of will need to be answered by the
Okay.
engineering study. We're at the very infancy of the concept, but we know that unlike sewer, on the water side, they have capacity. The MWRA absolutely has capacity. So it really just gets down to kind of cost and
Distribution,
design
how to
and
get it,
the
yeah.
distribution and just sort of, but it's already down toward Weymouth, into Weymouth. So, and this is a very long-term project too. I want to highlight,
Sure.
this is not a 1, 2, 3-year project. This is a 10 to 15-year project. So this is something that,
But you have to get in early on something like this. You can't
Right.
wait till it's beyond.
Right.
So.
And
And
there
that's
are
where
new
it's good.
incentives the MWRA has put out, potentially waiving certain connection fees and things like that. So it's a good time to express interest.
Yeah, it also parallels the building at Union Point.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
they are also looking into.
Right? Yep,
MWR
that
as a
we
possibility,
discussed
so.
exactly. And so, and
Yeah.
if you think about some of these other communities, it might literally go right through Union Point, so the
Yep.
timing is good, yeah. So those are my two recommendations. With those
Okay.
two recommendations, you'll see we're still carrying a smaller reserve balance now of 90,000 for what's committed, so
Would you like a vote on that?
I would.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve those two recommendations for ARPA funds.
Motion to approve.
I got a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second, all those in favor? That's unanimous, Doug?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other new business not reasonably anticipated, Doug?
I have none.
Old business, 11/7/2023, special town meeting warrant, Doug.
Yes, so I do have an update for you there. I have two updates, really. Now, I'm up to a recommended 9 warrant articles, and I'm counting Union Point as one article. So Union Point's probably going to be 3, so add 2 more to this. And again, this is in no particular order. It's really just as I thought of them. I'd like to run down the list. The last 2 are the new ones. So Union Point, there'll probably be 3 articles for that. Holy Family Senior Affordable Housing Project, Fire Station Feasibility Study, which we've talked about previously, Training Grant Match for the Fire Department, additional funds for the Police Department for their HVAC and roof replacement project, typo correction to the Library Director's salary, rewriting the sewer bylaw that was voted at the last town meeting, because the AG's office has still not approved that, and so we're likely going to just need to rewrite it completely. And I can talk about that more if you'd like. Now, these next 2 are the 2 new ones, and this kind of dovetails with what's one of the questions that Mike O'Loughlin asked the senator and the state rep. I met with the school superintendent today. He and Jane Hackett came in to see me. They've talked about this publicly already at a school committee meeting, but they are, even though we're just started the new fiscal year, they are projecting a $500,000 to $600,000 deficit in the school budget, which they are essentially attributing all toward unanticipated special ed costs and transportation and everything related to it. I did put 2 pieces of paper in your packet under this tab that shows some of the information that they handed out to me. Their ask for the town is $300,000 to be funded at the special town meeting, which the only place I could think of would be free cash. Which is not ideal, but that's what they're requesting. Given that this is a little bit unusual, I would say the timing of it, because it's so early in the fiscal year, if you would like, I did ask them just to pencil in your next meeting in 2 weeks, if you'd like to have them come in and you can talk to them more about it, because I can't really speak too intelligently other than kind of repeating what they said, and I do appreciate, which again gets to Mike's comments, much of this is really outside of their control. If, new students move into town that need exceptional care that's expensive and out of town, and there's laws requiring us to provide the service, it puts them in a pickle. And then the last article, this one literally just came up probably at 5 o'clock tonight. Our town clerk, Liza Landy, was dealing with the state on the calendar, which you have at the beginning of your binder at every meeting, which goes, when are our elections, when do you pull papers and drop papers off and all that stuff. And the bottom line was, even though we've been doing it this way forever, they questioned this, I think it was the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office, questioned whether we have ever adopted Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 110A. And we could not find any documentation that we had ever adopted that, and they couldn't either. And so what they said is, as a result, when you look at our proposed schedule, there's a lot of due dates that fall on Saturdays. And what this law lets you do is, when there's something due on a Saturday, if you adopt this law, you can have it be effective on the following, business day. But if you don't, and Donna's nodding her head because she's familiar with it, if you don't adopt the law, you have to be open on that Saturday for whatever that business is. So the point is, we're going to incur a lot of overtime to have to be open on a lot of Saturdays, even though the state's never called us out on whether we adopted this before, but it's an easy fix. We have a special town meeting. It's a very simple article. If you look up this law, it's like a 1 sentence,
John, do you recall if we ever adopted it?
I don't.
You don't? No, off the top of your head, you don't have
We
that?
did a lot of Saturdays,
Yeah,
so
I know, I
I'm
bet.
thinking no.
Yeah, okay.
And what they said is, it's possible that it could have been adopted a long time ago, and the documentation is just, but the cleanest way to do it is to redo it.
Yeah.
So That's that one. That's all I have on the warrant as of today. Hopefully, it won't get any bigger.
All right, other old business not reasonably anticipated?
I have none.
Okay, town administrators report and correspondence.
Great, thanks, Mike. I have a few things. The first, really good news, we have hired a town planner. I'm really excited. Yep, our first permanent land use planner. It's going to be great. I don't want to go into more detail on it now, just because I don't know if she's given her notice at her current job yet. So at your next meeting in 2 weeks, you'll have all the details. But I'm very excited. It's a woman who has a lot of directly relevant, great experience in this field, and I think as far as fit goes, she'll fit in Rockland really well. So I'm very excited for you to meet her. We'll talk about her more at the next meeting. Similarly, for the assistant town administrator hiring, I've narrowed it down to 2 finalists. We've not made a decision yet. I'm hoping by the end of this week to have that decision made. Either way will be good. Like, we had a lot of good candidates, so even more than the 2 finalists. We had many good candidates. Like I said, narrowed it down to 2. I'll make a decision by the end of the week. In 2 weeks, I'll be able to give you more detail on that person, but we'll be in good shape. And then also, while I'm on a roll with hiring, we have filled the position of assistant town accountant after a long vacancy, as well as, and I think I mentioned this at a prior meeting, we've promoted someone internally for the position of assistant treasurer. So those department heads, the accountant and the treasurer, made those appointments, and it's really great to have them in there because it's been tough for both of them being without assistance for so long. A couple other things that I've been working on these last few weeks, our next bi-monthly newsletter that will be coming out within the next couple of weeks. I've been working on some ARPA applications. Much of the stuff are things that Jen was doing when she was here, so I've been relearning how to do some of this. Still working on the surplus vehicle auction, just waiting for the company to flick the final switch on having the online auction, but that will be coming shortly. MBTA community zoning, we talked about that with our state reps. I've applied for another technical assistance grant from the state to help us with consultants come up with zoning that's going to meet their requirements. It's been a pretty frustrating process. Not the consultants, the state rules have been frustrating. In your packet, I gave you another Cannabis Control Commission letter that I sent to them with my comments, and as I indicated earlier, I am planning on giving some comments remotely through Zoom or Teams or however they're going to do it on Friday morning. It's going to be kind of brief. It's not going to be long. I think they want to limit comments to just a couple of minutes, but it'll be the same kind of highlights you've heard me say many times before. I'll spare it. And then lastly, I just want to thank Canavana again for their $25,000 donation to Rockland Little League. It's really going to make a huge difference for them. They're very appreciative, and that's really going to put that project over the top. So that was nice, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Doug. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Selectman Elwood.
Okay, even though I guess we have a new member, I guess I'll keep it going because we still have 3 openings. Rent control, still, it's great we can have a quorum now and actually have meetings, but we could actually like to get it to a full, is it 7 or 9? I forget, it's 7, right? 7,
so.
yeah. So we still need 3 more people there. Secondly, I'd like to offer congratulations to a wonderful girl who graduated from 2015, went on to play professional golf, Megan Kang, winning her first LGPA event, I believe it was 2 weekends ago, and will be going on to represent the United States in the Solheim Cup in Spain, which I think is coming up at some point this month. I'm not sure exactly when. And most importantly, I'd like to say happy anniversary to my wife of 31 years, which is tonight.
Oh, you're in the doghouse.
I am.
I had to do my wife's birthday last year. Oh, yeah. Not good. Thank you, John. Select person, Childs.
I wanted to send out a hearty congratulations to Karen Nyman because she got engaged. She was on our board, and it's wonderful. Also, I was very saddened to hear about the death of Richard Irwin. He got hit by a car on Union Street and in an area that was not well lit, so it wasn't at the crosswalk. So I was wondering if we could put a flashing crosswalk somewhere along that street for people that don't want to walk all the way down to the crosswalk and cross at Holy Family. My condolences go out to Richard's family and also to the young man that hit him and his family as well. So, and finally, the WRPS fundraiser at the high school last Saturday was wicked awesome. It was great. We raised a little over $3,000 for WRPS, their scholarship fund, and I just have so many people to thank. It'll be like the Oscars. It'll take quite a while. But our local businesses were so generous. I got like 30 gift cards. We had gift card raffles, and they said, oh yeah, whatever you need, here you go. It was very easy collecting for that. And, I'd like to thank Chief Zioli because they provided police detail for us and at a discounted rate. And God, there's so many. I should have written this down. There's so many people. I want to thank Dr. Crone for giving the thumbs up for this whole project, and it was really cool. Lisa Breeden from WRPS, next year, the same weekend, the last weekend of the summer, wants to have a battle of the bands. So if you're thinking about getting a band together, there's an opportunity for you to have that next year. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Lori. Select Person Shorto?
They took all my words, so I have nothing else.
Fair enough. Vice Chairman Needham?
I would just like to welcome back all of the students in Rockland to school. This last week was a big week for everybody, and I also wanted to thank Chief Zioli and your police department because I know as a mom in the drop-off lane at Phelps, it's a big undertaking all of a sudden, the three schools coming into one, and your department has been so helpful. Every day, it's things are coming together, and the kids are so enthusiastic, and I am so excited for all the members of the new elementary school, as well as all of the promise that all of our students have. So welcome back to school, everybody, and to all the moms, the kids are back. That's good too, but thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. I don't really have much tonight. I just want to offer my condolences to the family of Janet Killinger. She passed away unexpectedly last week. She's the wife of former Deputy Chief Jim Killinger of the Fire Department and the mother of Jill Maroney, who's the chairperson of our school committee. So with that, we offer our condolences to the two of them and the rest of their family as well. With that, I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss pending litigation, Thomas Rubel versus Christopher Falco et al., and strategy with respect to potential litigation that is demonstrably likely, name of matter withheld. Not to reconvene. I have a motion.
Motion.
I have a second. All those in favor, roll call vote. Select Person Childs?
Yes.
Select Person Shorto?
Yes.
Select Person Elwood?
Yes.
Vice Chair Nyman?
Yeah.
Nyman, jeez. Needham. Wow, that was 4 years of that, okay?
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry. And myself, that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Right.